Suzuki has been in South Africa for a relatively short amount of time, but in that time, they've built themselves a reputation as makers of very good cars that are fun to drive and offer good value. What initially started as a fairly limited range has been expanding over time, and now they've just added another new model, the Splash. This is the car that fits in between their entry-level Celerio and the slightly more sophisticated Swift, both of which are very nice little cars. Suzuki is hoping the Splash will appeal to a whole range of markets, from young students to small families to those older folk who no longer have kids living at home with them. On paper, it's got a few things that I suppose would appeal to those various markets, as long as they all like their cars to look different. From the front, the Splash has got oversized headlights, and at the back a severely tapering roofline, and I'm really not quite sure if I like it or not. I suppose there's something endearing in its uniqueness. It has a sort of mini MPV look about it, and a sense that it really wants to be a practical choice more than anything else. There are two options in the model lineup. This is the more expensive GL, and it gets the benefit of extra color-coded bits, fog lights, and a rear spoiler. So, I may be ambivalent about the look of this thing, but that doesn't mean I wasn't looking forward to driving it. There are some small cars that just have something about them. And I don't mean small cars like the Alfa Romeo 4C, I mean small cars like the Fiat Panda or the Suzuki Splash. When I saw this car on the test schedule, I was genuinely excited to drive it because I thought it was one of those small cars. And it's a Suzuki. And Suzuki's engineering is top class. Every one of their cars that I've driven has been well thought out and well built. They haven't all been amazing driving machines, but at the very least, there's an underlying quality to their design and construction that, for me, adds more to their value than a USB port or electric mirrors. Take this Splash, for example. It might have a taller than usual stance, but it doesn't lean unnecessarily in the corners. It doesn't feel unstable or unsafe. The steering is spot on. The gear shift is short and snappy, and under normal driving conditions, it just never feels uncertain. In fact, it would be perfect if it wasn't for one thing. The engine, which is the only engine choice in the range. It's a 1.2-litre petrol that puts out 63 kilowatts and 113 newton meters, and it really is underwhelming. What makes it even more disappointing is that Suzuki are generally brilliant at making small engines that are still enjoyable. This isn't one of them. And not because it doesn't have 200 kilowatts. The 3-cylinder 1-litre in the Suzuki Alto has only got 50 kilowatts, and that's an epic little engine. This one just feels wheezy and laboured, and it's not helped by a gearbox that just doesn't seem interested in making the best use of the power that's on offer. Downshifts on uphills or any time a burst of power is needed are a recurring theme in here, as is the need to keep the revs above 4,000 to get any sort of result. There is a 4-speed auto option for this car, and it may be worth considering, for no other reason that it's hopefully better than this 5-speed manual. On the upside, this engine is surprisingly efficient. Even with all the town driving and high revving we did on test, the fuel consumption figure was around the 6.5 litres per 100k mark, and at one point was as low as 5.5. The misery of the motor is mitigated just a bit by the interior. Well, maybe more than just a bit. That engineering I was talking about extends to Suzuki's interiors, where they make cabins that are well bolted together and made of good materials with a decent layout. The extra height of the Splash may not be all that convincing from the outside, but on the inside it adds the benefit of real space. Unless your name is Ibn Etzebeth, there's limitless headroom and, according to Suzuki, enough space for 3 adults on the back seat. Spec-wise, our GL test car gets nice extra things like remote central locking, a trip computer, audio controls on the steering wheel, and electric windows and mirrors. The space, combined with good seats and a well-laid-out cabin, makes the Splash a good place in which to navigate traffic. All things considered, the Splash still is good value. For 150,000 Rand, you get a well-specced, well-built car that'll keep you comfortable thanks to a nicely packaged interior. But in order to be able to enjoy it, you have to put up with narcoleptic acceleration and a gearbox that is about as enthusiastic as your grandmother at a house party.
Sadly, the 1.2-litre engine is the weakest link in the Splash package. The 5-speed manual gearbox has a good shift action, but the ratios don't help a less than enthusiastic power delivery. Despite that disappointing engine, the Splash still represents decent value thanks to Suzuki's top engineering and build quality, matched to a comfortable, well-spec'd interior.